The rain was still falling when Emma pressed her hand against the thrift store window, watching a mannequin dressed in an elegant red gown she could never afford. It wasn't the dress itself that made her pause. It was what it represented. Confidence. Belonging. The kind of life she'd once dreamed of before reality taught her that dreams had a price she couldn't pay. Her reflection in the glass looked tired, small. But behind her, in the faint reflection, a man with a gentle smile had just stopped under the awning, watching her with eyes that carried their own kind of warmth, the kind that didn't care about appearances. That man was Noah. He didn't know her yet. Not really, but that night, as the rain continued to fall, fate was quietly sewing the first thread between two people who had both been silently fighting their own battles, hers of survival, his of loneliness. Emma worked long shifts at a small diner that smelled of burnt coffee and nostalgia. Her uniform was faded, her shoes worn, and her smile, though genuine, was often the only thing she could afford to give freely. Each night she counted her tips carefully, not for herself, but for her younger brother Jacob, who waited at home doing homework by candlelight when the electricity bill went unpaid again. She had no time for romance, no space for vanity, and certainly no patience for men who only noticed beauty wrapped in silk. Then one evening, as the diner's doorbell jingled, he walked in, the same man from the thrift store, drenched from the storm, wearing a dark coat that looked more expensive than anything in the diner combined, yet his eyes carried that same unassuming kindness. "Coffee?" she asked, trying not to stare. "Please." "Black," he said, his voice calm but warm. "You look like you could use one too." She laughed softly, shaking her head. "Not allowed on shift. Then maybe when you're off." He smiled. Not flirtatiously, not like the others, just softly, as if he already knew she'd say no. And she did. For a while. But he kept coming back. Every night around the same time, sitting in the same booth near the window, sometimes reading, sometimes watching the rain, sometimes just quietly listening to her hum as she refilled cups. His name was Noah, a man who ran a small photography studio across town. "I capture moments people want to remember," he once said. "But I think I'd rather capture the ones they forget." One night, when she accidentally spilled coffee and apologized profusely, he simply smiled and said, "It's just coffee. Don't let small things ruin your night." And something about that sentence, so simple, stuck with her long after he left. Weeks passed, and their conversations grew. He learned about Jacob, about her struggles, about the dreams she'd once had of being a fashion designer before life demanded practicality over passion. She learned that Noah had lost someone, a fiancé, 2 years earlier in an accident that left him hollow inside. They didn't talk about love. They just understood each other in quiet ways words couldn't describe. Then one day, he asked her to come to his studio. "I'm doing a small project," he explained. "Photographs that tell stories of ordinary people, real stories. You'd be perfect," she laughed nervously. "Me?" "Noah, I don't have fancy clothes or anything." "You don't need them," he said, that familiar smile touching his eyes. "Just come as you are." The studio smelled of light and warmth, if such a thing could be smelled. White walls, soft lights, gentle music playing from a small speaker. She stood there awkwardly at first, unsure what to do with her hands, until he said quietly, "Just look at me." And when she did, something changed. He captured her not as a waitress, not as a girl who couldn't afford the dress in the window, but as someone strong, resilient, radiant in her honesty. Each click of the camera told a story her reflection had long forgotten, one of quiet bravery. When he showed her the photos later, her eyes filled with tears. "That can't be me," she whispered. "That's you," he said gently. "The version of you that doesn't apologize for existing." That night, as she walked home under the streetlights, she realized she'd been chasing beauty through other people's eyes when, in truth, it had been hiding in her perseverance all along. But life had its tests. A week later, the diner announced it was closing. Her last paycheck barely covered rent, and the thought of losing her small apartment, and with it the only home Jacob knew, crushed her spirit. She didn't tell Noah at first. Pride made her smile through the cracks until he noticed. "Emma," he said softly one night, "you don't have to carry everything alone." Her voice broke. "If I fall apart, there's no one to fix it." He reached across the table, his hand brushing hers. "Then I'll help you pick up the pieces. You've done it alone long enough," and he meant it. He offered Jacob a tutoring job at his studio, helped Emma connect with local artists who used second-hand fabric to make designs. One of her sketches, just one, ended up in a small charity fashion show. The same thrift store that once made her feel small lent her the mannequin she'd once stared at. This time, she wasn't looking through the glass. She was part of the story. The night of the show, she wore a simple blue dress she'd stitched herself. Not fancy, but beautiful in its simplicity. As the crowd clapped, she saw Noah watching from the corner, camera in hand, his expression proud, gentle. After the show, she found him outside, leaning against the railing, the city lights flickering in his eyes. "You were incredible," he said. She smiled shyly. "I still don't have fancy clothes." He chuckled, stepping closer, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "You don't need them, Emma. You never did." And in that quiet moment, beneath the hum of the city, she finally believed it. Because sometimes, the most beautiful people aren't the ones who shine in the spotlight, but the ones who find light within themselves, and share it with others who have forgotten how to see it. As Noah lifted his camera one last time and whispered, "Don't move." The click of the shutter captured more than an image. It captured a story of resilience, love, and the simple truth that the heart needs no fancy clothes to be seen.